By the 10th year of my entombment, I was so starved for sensation I even considered peeling the skin off the old yellow dog that sometimes wandered through the temple ruins. Instead, I encountered a disgraced concubine, one cast out from the Marcus estate. She knelt beside my bones and burned paper offerings before the crumbling altar. "Immortal lady," she whispered, "you delight in beautiful human skin. I despise this face of mine, this lotus-petal beauty. Shall we trade?" I never imagined that in this day and age someone would willingly come to this broken, desolate temple. I thought, even if I waited until my bones turned to dust, no one would ever come to me with a proper skin deal. I was even more surprised to see who it was. Mei Lian, the concubine of Lord Kuang-yuan's household. 3 years ago, I had set my sights on her skin, tried to lure her into a bargain. She refused. Back then she had just come of age, a flat cake seller, poor and grimy. Late one night, she stumbled into this cold and sinister temple of mine, completely alone. The place leaked from all sides. She curled up in a corner, then spotted the pile of paper money I'd gathered atop the shadowed altar. After bowing a few times in different directions, she nervously struck a match and lit the offerings. In the flickering light, she caught sight of my skull. I had been here 7 years by then. My flesh had long since rotted away, chewed clean by maggots. All that remained was a hideous naked skull. She gasped in shock. I let out a chilling low laugh, full of mischief and menace. After all, it had been a long time since I'd had company. Of course I wanted to give her a good scare, but what she said next left me stunned. She glanced around the ruined temple, then back at me. After a deep breath, summoning all her courage, she looked me in the face and stammered, "Immortal lady." I had imagined many reactions, panic screams, curses of monster or demon. But why call me immortal lady? What sort of celestial maiden looks like this? My laughter died in my throat. I simply stared at the strange little girl before me. Mei Lian, seeing that I didn't seem enraged, immediately bowed and murmured, "Immortal lady, forgive me. I truly had nowhere else to go. I never meant to disturb your meditation or intrude upon your sacred dreams. I apologize. I truly do. That paper money I burned, it was presumptuous of me. I swear I'll repay you double tomorrow. Please don't take offense. This one was clearly a fool. Calling me immortal lady was one thing, but then she had the audacity to stay and offer prayers. I looked at her with thinly veiled disdain, yet she reached into her basket and pulled out a freshly made flat cake, placing it on the altar with great care. "Immortal lady," she said, "I made this myself. I don't have any more paper money, but maybe this can be a temporary offering?" The scent of warm baked flour floated into my nose. I nodded in satisfaction and studied her again. Not bad, quite pleasing to me, but I'm a spirit, and not a kind one. I usually repay kindness with trickery, so I lied to her. "You burned my offering," I said. "By our rules, that means you must strike a deal with me." She asked softly, "What kind of deal?" I looked her up and down slowly, savoring her beauty. Tsk-tsk-tsk. No flaws at first glance. And yet, her allure was striking. A true lotus face, a flawless beauty skin. "I can grant your deepest wish," I told her, coaxing, honey-voiced. "All I ask in return is your skin." She blinked at me. Will I die? What a fool. I rolled my eyes. "You'll ascend to the Pure Lands. It's a great merit, an act of spiritual grace." But Mei Lian shook her head. "I don't want to ascend anywhere. I just want to stay alive." I nearly choked on my frustration. "No," I hissed. "You already burned the paper money. You have to follow through. The deal is made." She burst into tears. She cried so hard I thought my bones would go deaf from the sound. Sob after sob, until finally she looked up with red swollen eyes and sniffled. "Immortal lady. May I come back tomorrow? Could we strike the deal then? I want to burn some paper for my parents first." Before I could stop her, she grabbed 5 more flat cakes from her basket and stacked them on the altar, then scrambled to her feet and fled, nearly tripping over her own skirts in her haste. I sighed and watched her go, bitter with disappointment. Another one. Escaped. Next time, I thought, I should be even crueler. I won't tell them the cost. That way they'll say yes before they understand. She really was a complete fool. But to my surprise, she returned the next day. I was startled to see her. Truly, I hadn't expected it. She brought a full basket of paper money and 10 flat cakes. She placed them all carefully on my altar, her fingers trembling. "I've already burned offerings for my parents," she said. "Immortal lady. I don't have any special wishes. But if I must make one, I only ask that my parents rest peacefully in the afterlife." The scent of those flat cakes reached my nose again, and I softened, if only slightly. "Didn't I already tell you?" I said. "When you die, you'll ascend to the Pure Lands. You'll be reunited with your parents there." But Mei Lian only shook her head. "Immortal lady, I know. Those who trade away their skin for selfish desires always meet tragic ends. Don't try to comfort me. It's my own fault I burned the paper money without thinking. Disturbed your peace. I deserve whatever comes." My lie had been seen through. I was a little embarrassed, a little irritated. "I wasn't trying to comfort you," I snapped. "Or, forget it. I'm not in the mood for this bargain anymore. I'll make an exception and let you go. You get to live." Her eyes lit up at once. A radiant smile broke across her face. She knelt and kowtowed deeply. "Thank you, immortal lady. Thank you. Thank you." As she bowed, the bruises on her wrists caught my eye, stark, purple, and jarring. I still couldn't bear to part with her skin. That skin would one day be mine. So when I saw the bruises, it was like watching someone damage something that belonged to me. My tone grew sharp. "Explain those bruises. Who did that to you?" Mei Lian's face turned pale. She quickly tried to cover them, but I pulled up the sash of her sleeve and lifted the edge of her skirt. What I saw made my breath catch. Her arms and legs were covered in bruises, large and small, blue, purple, yellowing. My heart ached. That was my beautiful skin. "Tell me," I demanded, "where did these come from? I won't let you go until you answer." Mei Lian hesitated. Finally she said quietly, "It was my uncle and aunt. She told me her parents had died years ago. She'd been raised by her mother's brother and his wife. The aunt made her sell a full basket of flat cakes each day, and if she failed, she'd be beaten. She'd been afraid yesterday, afraid to return home empty-handed, so she'd spent the night here instead. I was furious. I couldn't let that wretched couple ruin my precious skin. So I broke off the pinky finger from my right hand and handed it to her. "Take this," I said. "It will help you." She looked at it, shocked and hopeful. "Will it help me sell all my flat cakes?" I rolled my eyes. "What a waste. No. Bury it under your aunt and uncle's bed. They won't trouble you again." She frowned. "Will it hurt them?" "Of course not," I lied. "It will simply bring them peace." As she left, I gave a long, slow smile behind her. I lied. I'm a bone spirit. I don't grant peace. That charm would drain their essence, muddle their minds, and make them too weak to torment others. Let them rot in their own fog. Compared to me, a creature of bone and shadow, she looked even more lifeless. Her body was frail and sunken. Her once rosy face had gone pale and bloodless, like old paper. I looked at her for a long time. "You've suffered," I finally said. Mei Lian gave a bitter little smile. Yes, immortal lady, you told me so, remember? You said people like me were born to suffer. That was 3 years ago. I had said that. Ever since she first found her way into my ruined temple, Mei Lian had come to see me daily. She brought paper money to burn. She placed a crisp, fragrant flat cake on the altar each time. As the days passed, she grew bolder. She began to talk to me, to ask questions. "Immortal lady," she once asked, "have you ever had someone successfully trade skin with you?" I gnawed idly on a flat cake. A pointless gesture, really, but the taste brought me joy, and replied, "This temple is small, hidden. In 7 years, only 3 people have ever come inside, including you." She leaned forward. "Who are the others?" The first was a scholar on his way to the capital to sit for the imperial exams. Studied himself into madness. Said he'd trade his skin for top honors on the exam list. I rolled my eyes. I ignored him. What use do I have for a man's skin? The second, I continued, was a pork seller's daughter. Thick-bodied, strong as an ox. Said she'd give me her skin if I helped her marry the man she loved. I snorted. With that build? If I wore her skin, I'd have to hang myself from a tree just to escape the shame. And the third, I looked at Mei Lian with a smile. That was you. You with your flawless lotus-petal beauty. But you refused. I narrowed my eyes, teasing her. Still, I know you'll come around eventually. This world isn't kind to girls like you. That face, that bloodline. Suffering is inevitable. And I was right. One day, Mei Lian came to say goodbye. She brought an entire basket of flat cakes. Her eyes were red. "My aunt has arranged a marriage for me," she said. "They sold me off to the Marquis of Kungyuan's estate. I'll be a concubine." She forced a smile. "They took the bride price to buy a wife for my cousin." She bowed her head. "Immortal lady, I'll come visit you again." I stared at her face, unable to hide the longing in my voice. "Next time you return," I whispered. "Come ready to make the deal. Give me your skin." The words hung between us, a prophecy spoken in sorrow. Now, years later, Mei Lian knelt before me once more, a silent child in her arms. She said nothing. Neither did I. 3 years ago, I tried to frighten her, to lure her into giving me her skin, but now with her truly standing before me, skin still intact, my desire faltered. Back then I only wanted the skin so I could leave this temple, escape my boredom. But those days with her had been less lonely. "You're late," I said flatly. Mei Lian gave a crooked smile. "Yes, I'm nearly dead." Her eyes turned to the child in her arms. "At least now, I can go keep company." I glanced at the baby. Its face, no bigger than half a palm, had turned a dusky green. Already dead. Barely a few days old, I guessed. Mei Lian began burning paper money for me again. The wind picked up, and ash filled the ruined temple like a fog. Even I, a creature of death, found my throat tight. I almost wanted to cry. Mei Lian said, "You told me once, offering you paper money meant striking a deal." I felt a strange irritation rise inside me. "I lied," I snapped. "I only said that to scare you, to trick you into giving me your skin." "But you knew," I added. "Anyone who makes a deal with me never meets a good end." Mei Lian pulled out a faint smile. "That's all right. I wasn't going to live long anyway." She looked me straight in the eyes. "You love beauty, don't you? I hate this face of mine. Let's trade." I should have been elated. At last, after 10 long years, I was about to receive the only beauty I'd ever truly longed for. But I was silent for a long time. "What is your wish?" I finally asked. "Is it revenge? Do you want those who hurt you to pay in blood?" Mei Lian knelt, her forehead to the ground. "Immortal lady, revenge would luola your karma." I wouldn't ask that of you." "I've suffered," she said, "but I never wanted much. You once told me you wish to see the world outside. If you go, and it's not too much to ask, would you burn paper money for me and my child each year?" Then she swallowed the pill I had given her 3 years ago. In an instant, her body shriveled like a dying flower. Her skin sloughed off in one smooth sheet, floating gently on to the altar. What remained was a pile of bone, stripped of flesh. I put on her skin. In the mirror I saw her face, soft brows, almond eyes, a classic beauty, a perfect disguise. I had tricked Mei Lian. I wasn't some immortal lady. I was a creature of skin and lies, a bone demon, a Rakshasa spirit. What did I care for karma, for vows? But this time, I did repay her. She gave me her skin, so I gave her justice. I left the ruined temple that had held me prisoner for 10 years. And the first thing I did, something I'd never once imagined, was dig a grave. I found a stretch of good earth, cut a slab of century-old Nanmu wood, buried Mei Lian and her child together beneath it. I carved them a nameless headstone. When it was done, I called for a carriage. From Mei Lian's hometown to the capital took half a month. We rode day and night. By the time we arrived, the sun was setting, casting blood-orange light over the gates of the grand estate. The gate was lacquered red, towering and ornate. A black plaque with golden characters hung above. Marquis of Kungyuan. The guards at the gate stared at me, stunned, then ran inside to report. Moments later, 2 women emerged, with a crowd of servants behind them. One was modestly dressed, hair combed into a flawless knot, bearing the quiet dignity of power. She was the Marquis's wife, Lady Song. The other wore dazzling makeup and a cascade of jeweled hairpins. Her figure swayed as she walked, lips curved in a mocking smile. That was the favored concubine, Lin Sirong. Lady Song frowned slightly. "Mei Lian, you left the estate without permission a month ago, and now you return without word. Do you understand how serious this is? As a concubine," she said coldly, "you should know your place. I understand your grief over your child's death, but your actions have shamed the Marquis's house. You've placed me in a very difficult position." Concubine Lin sneered. "Indeed, Mei Lian, you make the estate look like some southern market, coming and going as you please." She narrowed her painted eyes. "You didn't, perhaps, sneak off to meet some lover, did you? After all, you were gone an entire month. Who can say what happened?" Her smile sharpened. "That baby of yours. Who knows who the father really was? Maybe that's why the heavens took it." The 2 women sang in perfect harmony, ready to drag me into disgrace. Mei Lian's skin came with her memories. I knew now, these 2 had always been at odds with her, constantly needling, undermining. But on one thing, they were united, bullying her. I looked up at them and wove a lie effortlessly. "After my child died," I said, "I followed a custom from my hometown. We believe that scattering a newborn's ashes at the maternal family's grave can disperse resentment. If not done, the lingering anger may curse the household and its children. I feared the Marquis and Lady Song would dismiss this as superstition, so I said nothing, but I couldn't let the anger fester. I left to protect the household." Concubine Lin paled. Her smug face tightened. Lady Song's frown deepened. "Nonsense." "Nonsense like that," Lady Song said coolly, "is the kind of superstition spread by roadside sorcerers. How could you possibly believe it?" She gave me a look of delicate condescension. "I understand your grief. You've lost your child. Your body and spirit are unbalanced. But still." The older maid beside her picked up the thread. "The household has its rules. No matter the reason, leaving the estate without permission is a grave offence. According to house law, it calls for 20 strikes of the cane and a month of solitary reflection in the ancestral hall." Lady Song gave a saintly little sigh, and shook her head. But given that Mei Lian has just lost her son and her health is fragile, let's show some mercy. We'll cut the punishment in half. 10 strokes instead of 20. She sighed again, hands folded over her prayer beads. It's not that I'm cruel. The family rules are the family rules. Even I must obey. One played the harsh voice, the other the gentle hand, and together they sealed my sentence. 10 lashes. Had this truly been Mei Lian, the 10 strikes would have shattered her bones. I studied Lady Song's face, fascinated. Such a pure and pious expression, a face that lit incense and recited sutras daily. She had been the one to half coax, half threaten Mei Lian's aunt into selling her to the Marquise, a pawn to counterbalance the rise of Lin Se-rong. Of course, made Mei Lian's life a quiet hell. But Lady Song, she simply looked the other way. Later, when Mei Lian was pregnant with the Marquis's first son, it was Lady Song who secretly instructed the midwife to act. It was she who turned a living child into a stillborn corpse, a bodhisattva's face with a serpent's heart. I couldn't help but marvel. What a mask she wore, but I didn't want her skin. It was too bland, like boiled water, colourless, tasteless, disgusting. While she prattled on, a servant had begun to approach me from behind, preparing to drag me away. His hips swayed arrogantly as he ascended the steps and reached for my waist. Just then, a lavish carriage arrived at the front gates. The Marquis stepped out, just in time to witness the scene. I curled my lips into a gentle, knowing smile. I had sensed his return the moment I began to protest. Now, I lifted my gaze, letting my eyes fill with hurt and softness. We bone spirits, born of skin and illusion, descended from ancestors who once lured scholars with beauty and then flayed them alive. The Marquis's eyes met mine, and for a second he hesitated. "What is going on?" he asked, frowning at Lady Song. She offered a calm explanation. Mei Lian left the estate without permission. I was merely instructing the servants to uphold house law. He nodded slowly, then turned to me. "Mei Lian, why did you leave the estate half a month ago?" I let my wrist twist gently, feigning pain as if the maid's grip had hurt me. With a sudden cry, I staggered and collapsed into the Marquis's arms, resting my head against his chest. "Forgive me, my lord," I wept, voice trembling. The pain of losing our child clouded my mind. I left the estate in mourning and shame, for I had not yet prayed for his soul. I meant only to protect you. Lin Se-rong spat. "What melodrama! You think this display will bring him back?" But the Marquis was moved. He lowered his voice, gently soothing me, and scooped me into his arms. I tucked away my fangs and nestled against his chest. This man, this was Mei Lian's husband. When she had first arrived at the estate, he had been enchanted by her beauty. But over time, he had grown bored, drifting toward Lin Se-rong and her endless tricks. When Mei Lian was framed, he had believed the lies. When she lost their child and tried to tell the truth, he had locked her up, annoyed that she disturbed his sleep. Disgusting. I turned my head away in secret revulsion. This skin should have been sold to a butcher. It would have suited the pigs better. Still, the Marquis carried me to my chambers. Once inside, he instructed the maids to help me change clothes, then called for the kitchen to prepare a meal. He gazed at me with foolish infatuation. I whispered to him, soft as silk, speaking of how much I had missed him. I hadn't even finished mourning my child, had worn no powder, no rouge, but this flawless skin glowed like polished jade. Later that night, Lin Se-rong came to mock me. "All that effort," she sneered. "You tried every trick to seduce the Marquis, and still he left your bed cold. What a pathetic little act." I laughed, genuinely amused. "What are you laughing at?" she snapped. I pointed at my lips. "Sister Lin, I'm laughing at you." Her expression changed. You're insolent. You clearly haven't suffered enough. I cut her off smoothly. Sister, why must we quarrel? I said. Aren't we simply letting others profit from our fighting? She frowned. You mean Lady Song? I nodded solemnly. You must be wondering, I continued, why I've changed so much since returning. The truth is, when I returned home, I uncovered something terrible. She raised an eyebrow. You know, I've never been favoured, I said. I had no jewellery worth selling. The only thing of value was that perfume sachet Lady Song gifted us, the purple flower fragrance. So I took some of the ingredients back with me, thinking to sell them. But while I was home, a physician examined the scent and told me it contained musk. Her eyes widened. Think about it, I said gently. Why has the estate been without sons for so many years? Why was my child born dead? I looked at her steadily, voice low and coaxing. Yes, Lady Song had indeed given both Lin and Mei Lian the same purple flower perfume, but Mei Lian had been lucky. Weak and sickly, I had gifted her a protective talisman before we parted years ago. It shielded her from the perfume's poison. Still, her child had died, because Lady Song had told the midwife exactly what to do. But facts don't matter. Only the illusion, truth or lie. If I could use it, it became real enough. My goal was simple. Drive a wedge between Lin Sirong and Lady Song. Let Lin believe I was on her side. Sure enough, Lin's face turned deathly pale. I knew it, she spat. I always thought it strange. Why would she, so stingy with everything, give me such expensive incense? I thought she was pretending to be kind, playing the saint. But she's a viper. She's always lamented not having a son, always complained about her fate, and yet she kept giving me that poison. She began to pace, breath heaving. I'll confront her. I stopped her gently. Not yet. If you charge in now, she'll deny everything. Worse, she'll hide the evidence, change the ingredients. I hesitated. What? She demanded. I lowered my gaze, voice small and trembling. The physician also said, My body is haunted, stained with ghostly qi. I feel there's a deeper secret behind all this. So I remained in the Marquis's estate, wearing Mei Lian's beauty like a second skin. As I dreamed more and more, the Marquis doted on me more fiercely. My position in the household rose with each passing day. Jewels poured into my chambers like spring rain. I had become the new favourite concubine, the next Lin Sirong. 2 weeks after my return, Lady Song began to grow uneasy. She sent for Mei Lian's cousin, that leech. He arrived unannounced, a fat pig-eyed man with a face like a slapped pancake. His parents, the 2 elder leeches, had died. Now he was the only bloodsucker left, lazy, greedy, and cruel. For years he had threatened Mei Lian, demanding money and gifts. Now he arrived at the estate with wide eyes and sticky fingers, admiring the wealth around him. He oozed through the entry hall, flattering the Marquis with cheap compliments. The cousin turned his grin toward Lady Song, showering her with nauseating praise. Then, bold as brass, he turned back to me and grabbed my hand with greasy familiarity. I withdrew coldly. His face darkened. He glanced at Lady Song, who gave him the smallest of nods. A flash of malice crossed his eyes. Cousin, he said with mock concern, I heard you return to our hometown a month ago. How strange that you didn't stop by to see your only family. And you didn't even burn incense at your uncle and aunt's graves. He gave a theatrical sigh. That would make any elder spirit cold with grief. Then he changed his tone. What's worse, I heard from the villagers that you went to visit the Luo family's tomb. You'd pay respects to another family, but not your own? That's quite improper, little cousin. Lady Song smiled thinly. Quite right. Mei Lian ought to listen to her cousin's reprimand. I'm curious, though. What's your connection to this Luo family, that you'd make a special trip to their grave? The cousin jumped in smoothly. Oh, nothing much. Just that they had a son around Mei Lian's age. They were close before she married. Very close. I watched the performance in silence. So this was the trap Lady Song had set. A play in which I was to be caught in an affair. She played along masterfully. A young woman shouldn't have contact with unrelated men before marriage, she said, turning to the Marquis. My lord, did you know about this? The Marquis's expression soured. Amen. They take 3 wives, 6 concubines, and wallow in the brothels, but expect the woman beside them to remain untouched, immaculate. I sipped my tea calmly. I never mentioned him, I said softly, because he's long dead. The son of the Luo family drowned years ago. His parents died not long after from grief. They were kind to me, I added. That's why I went to pay my respects. I was young when he drowned. I remember how frightened I was when I heard. I glanced at Lady Song. She knew exactly what I meant by drowned. Back then the Marquis had grown tired of Lin Sairong. He went south to pray for luck, and there, selling cakes on the roadside, was Mei Lian. He wanted to bring her home, but Mei Lian had someone, the Luo family's only son, a quiet scholar. She refused. No amount of coaxing or threats from Lady Song and her family could move her. So Lady Song paid a man to push the scholar into the river. The Luo family, without its pillar, collapsed quietly. No one made a fuss. Then Lady Song used the lives of the boy's grieving parents to force Mei Lian into the Marquis's household. Mei Lian never told me this. She only offered me flat cakes and chatted about trivial things, street gossip, local superstitions. She mentioned the scholar once or twice in passing, but never the filth and cruelty. Not until I wore her skin did I learn the truth. The Marquis's face eased slightly. After all, there's no point in being jealous of a dead man. I leaned gently against his shoulder, pale and fragile. Hearing my cousin speak of it, I whispered, I'll surely have nightmares tonight. My lord, please don't be angry with me. The cousin and Lady Song were left sputtering. They had forgotten one thing. I was no longer just a concubine. I was a demon. And demons don't follow human rules. So when the cousin heard I intended to return to Jiangnan, he was caught off guard. You're serious, he said, lighting up. You're really going back south? I nodded. I told the Marquis I missed home. He agreed we should all go. The whole estate will take a river journey south. It will soothe my homesickness and let us enjoy the sights. The cousin eagerly agreed. After all, he was Mei Lian's only surviving kin. That was how he dared enter the estate, how he dared cast judgment on me. He believed himself her last family, the moral weight behind her every word. If he said I was impure, the world would believe it. If her own blood rejected her, who else would stand by her? Lately the Marquis had grown visibly worn. His sleep was troubled. Every night I whispered strange things to him in dreams, haunted him with fragments of fear. He had never been brave to begin with. Now he was skittish, half mad. I shook my head and sighed to Lin Sairong, feigning concern. I don't know why, I said. The priest wouldn't say much, only that some monster wishes harm upon me. I paused. He did say one thing, that when demons suppress their true nature, they often cling to certain rituals, like copying Buddhist scripture. And they absolutely must not eat beef. Why not? Lin asked, eyes narrowed. Because the blood would stir their nature, I said gravely. Once the craving takes hold, they lose control. She fell silent. I glanced at Lady Song, who had just returned from the temple, scroll in hand, scripture on her lips. Of course I'm not saying it's her, I said hastily. It's just something to be careful of. But sister, I added, do be on your guard. These nightmares of yours, they may not be mere dreams." Lin Sirong's knuckles whitened around her sleeves. That night, I persuaded the Marquis to visit a pleasure house. When we returned to the flower boat, Lady Song was waiting, cold and stiff. "You're a concubine," she said sharply. "You should encourage your lord to focus on his duties, not distract him with this." I bowed. "You're right, madam. But since the marker isn't here at the moment, perhaps the three of us could enjoy the river scenery together? It might lighten our mood." Lin chimed in quickly. "Yes, sister, come. We're just drifting with the current." Of course she agreed. She and I had already made a plan. Tonight we would trick Lady Song into visiting the abandoned temple. So she played along, smiling, adding her voice to mine. Lady Song, after some hesitation, agreed. Later, under the glow of the full moon, I slipped away. "I'll go check outside for help," I lied, and vanished into the shadows. In truth, I had returned to the altar, back to the pile of white bone, to wait. Very soon, Lin Sirong stumbled upon the pile of burnt paper. She gasped, "What is that?" Lady Song stepped forward, calm as ever, and lit the paper with a match. The flame caught, and in that leaping light, Lin screamed. "There! The head—" She pointed to the rotting skull on the altar. Lady Song turned. Her face tightened, but only for a moment. Then it smoothed into cold serenity. The Marquis's mind was already fraying. He shouted, trembling, "Get away from me! Monster! Demon!" Lady Song snapped, "Are you mad? There's no such thing." Lin held tight to the talisman I'd given her. "It was you," she shrieked. "You brought us here. You knew what was in this temple. You killed them. You made sure I'd never have children. And now you want more." Sobbing, she lunged at Lady Song, the talisman raised like a dagger. Fear lends humans strength they never knew they had. I helped it along with just the slightest breath. Lin pushed hard. Lady Song stumbled backward, hit the altar's edge with a sickening crack. Blood spilled from her temple. Lin kept screaming even as her knees buckled. Only when she finally collapsed did I rise again, slipping free from the bone pile, skin once more wrapped around me. I walked over to Lady Song, pulled the jade hairpin from Lin's hand, and stood over her with a smile. Lady Song's eyes were still open. The blow hadn't been quite enough to kill her. Not yet. She looked at me through dazed, unblinking eyes. You're a demon," she whispered. I crouched beside her and smiled softly. "I am," I said. "A spirit who paints on human skin. This beautiful face you see? It was given to me by a girl named Mei Lian. She said she hated this face, hated how her life had been twisted and destroyed because of it. But her beauty was never the problem," I murmured. "The problem was the people around her. People like you, Lady Song, so full of poison, so terrified of losing control. You chose Mei Lian to counterbalance concubine Lin, but the moment she became inconvenient, you threw her into the fire. When Lin framed her, you didn't defend her. You used her to seize back household power. You offered her up as bait." I dragged the sharp tip of a jade hairpin across Lady Song's face. "She lost her child because you couldn't bear that she might give birth to the Marquis's elder son." I smiled, cruel and low. "Tell me, how does a woman who chants sutras and eats vegetarian still remain so vicious?" Lady Song glared at me, and in that final moment, she dropped her mask. No more grace, no more incense and prayer beads, just a hateful, spiteful woman. "She was a filthy street girl who sold flat cakes," she snarled. "I gave her a place in the Marquis's estate. That was the fortune of 8 lifetimes. And she dared get pregnant first. She thought she could be like that fox, Lin Sirong, climb above me. She was cursed the moment she met you." I pressed the hairpin to her neck and whispered, You know, I've dreamed of killing you, every day and every night. I promised Mei Lian. She gave me her skin. I would give her your lives. But the capital has too many nosy Taoist priests. If I killed you outright, they might notice something unnatural. So instead, I staged a little play. I grabbed her chin, forced her eyes toward Lin Seirong, who lay unconscious nearby. You see, in this script, she is the murderer. And you? You're the victim, the pitiful lady slain by a jealous rival. I drove the hairpin deep into her throat. Blood spattered across my face. Lady Song's eyes froze wide open, and she died. By the time the constables arrived, the temple was a scene of ruin. Lady Song lay dead in a pool of blood. Lin Seirong was still unconscious, her hair disheveled, her hands bloodied. It was I who reported the crime. I told them I had gone to seek help when the attack occurred. When I returned, I found Lin clutching a hairpin, screaming that Lady Song was a demon. The constables, of course, believed none of that. When the Marquis arrived, his face turned to iron. I collapsed into his arms, shaking with fear. He held me close, soothing me. Later he personally ordered Lin Seirong arrested. The next time I saw her was in prison. I carried a bowl of porridge through the heavy iron gates. The guards backed away at my nod. She sat on the straw mat, shackled, filthy, her hair hanging in greasy clumps. There was no trace of the woman she once was. The moment she saw me, she lunged toward the bars and grabbed my wrist. You're here. The Marquis sent you, didn't he? He sent you to rescue me. I shook my head gently and placed the bowl on the ground. No, the Marquis said you are a favored concubine. He wants to preserve your dignity. That's why you won't be beheaded like a common criminal. You'll be granted a clean death, no public display. She recoiled. No, no, she cried. He loves me. He wouldn't do this, not to me. Her voice cracked. You know the truth, she begged. You saw everything. Help me, please. I looked down at her. Sister, I said softly, have you forgotten? For the past 3 years, haven't you tormented me at every turn? Wasn't it you who took away my coal in the dead of winter? Not even rough charcoal, you left me with nothing. Wasn't it you who plotted silly little tricks to ruin my reputation, forcing me to kneel in the ancestral hall? Wasn't it you who used petty jealousy and poison incense to shatter my body? And now you want to call me your sister. Lin Seirong screamed. No, you shut up. It was you. You made me think Lady Song was the monster. You let me believe it. She clutched the bars, sobbing. You were the one sitting on the mountain, watching the tigers fight. I leaned in close. You're right, I said. She wasn't the monster. I was. Her face froze in horror. And I didn't lie. There was a demon involved. Just not the one you thought. I stepped back and peeled off my skin. What stood before her was no longer a woman. It was a spirit of bone, green-faced, fanged, with skin stretched tight and peeling. She opened her mouth to scream, but I seized her throat and forced it shut. With one hand, I held her down. With the other, I poured the entire bowl of porridge into her mouth. She choked and thrashed, and then she died. Only then did I calmly put my skin back on. A month later, I became the Marquis's official wife. The scandal was neatly buried. The Marquis crushed it with money, threats, and silence. Mei Lian's background was clean enough, and with both rivals dead, I was the only choice left. He raised me to the status of main wife. And yet, he no longer slept with me. I had gifted the famed courtesan at Drunken Flowers Pavilion a box of fragrant oil. The Marquis was captivated, obsessed. He spent his nights there, wrapped in dreams. But recently, even that had changed. Now he avoided the brothel. He stayed hidden in a small room on the western side of the estate, He hadn't slept for 7 days. I visited one night and found him pale and trembling. His eyes were red, with broken blood vessels. "My lord," I said softly, brushing a hand over his shoulder, "you need to rest." "No, no," he whispered. "I can't." "Why?" I asked gently. "A man must sleep eventually." He stared at me with wild eyes. Every time I close my eyes, I see her. In the middle of passion, she changes. Her face melts, and a monster lies beside me. I can't sleep. She's in the dream, waiting. He grabbed my wrist. "Liana," he begged, "find someone. A Taoist, a priest, anyone. I'm being followed. I'm haunted." I looked at him, expressionless. "Do you remember our child?" I asked. "Do you remember rooting?" His mouth twisted in anger. "Why would I remember that?" he snapped. "Just a child, already dead. What's the point? I thought you'd moved on. Why cling to something so foolish? I'm still young. I can have as many sons as I want. One dead fetus. What of it? What matters now is finding someone to save me." I nodded. "All right," I said. "But first, my lord, tell me what the ghost looks like." He frowned, thinking hard. It wears human skin," he muttered. "It paints over it. It has sharp teeth. Its face is green-black, monstrous." I placed a hand over his mouth, and in front of his terrified eyes, I revealed my true form. "Is it like this?" I whispered. The Marquis of Kyungyuan died that night. According to the physician, he had died of exhaustion. They said he had overindulged in the brothels, fallen sick, and refused rest or medicine until his body simply gave out. Such a fragile, stupid thing. The Marquis's funeral was a grand affair, lavish, ostentatious, full of ceremony. But the body? I dug it back up myself. I had said before, that skin of his belonged hanging in a butcher's shop. But no butcher deserved that kind of misfortune. So I peeled the flesh from his bones, burned the skin to ash, and carried the meat and marrow back to Jiangnan. I gave it to a neighbor's little girl, a wedding gift. Before I left, Mei Lian's cousin tried to stop me. His eyes gleamed with greed. He rubbed his oily palms together, leering. "Little sister," he crooned, "look at you now, mistress of the Marquis' estate, head of the household. I know. Back then my parents were strict with you, but it was only for your own good." I smiled and raised the bowl in my hands. He opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came out. I'd cut out his tongue. "Don't move," I said mildly, "or you'll spill the ink." He twitched, but the blade tapped his cheek gently. "You're Mei Lian's only living relative now," I continued softly, "so your flesh is the closest thing I have to her bloodline. That's why I'm using your skin to copy scripture, so she can walk the road to reincarnation more smoothly." I turned and carried a full bowl of plum snow porridge into the incense room. A maid came forward. "Madam, midwife Ju is here." Ju, the midwife who once delivered Mei Lian's child. I smiled coldly. "Ah," I said. "I was going to summon her. Now I don't have to." "Let her in." I stepped into the great hall. Midwife Ju knelt in the center, arms wrapped tightly around a baby. I took my seat at the head of the room. "Well," I said, "I nearly forgot about you. Choose your death." Midwife Ju dropped to the floor, kowtowing furiously. "Madam, please have mercy. I was forced, truly forced." Lady Song threatened me. I couldn't do such a cruel thing, so I found a stillborn and used it to replace your child. She lifted the baby in trembling hands. "Your real child. I hid him in the countryside. There's a birthmark. You can check. 3 years later, I held a young child's hand as we walked through a misty hill in Jiangnan. "Foster mother," the child asked, "whose grave is this?" He stared up at me, puzzled. I looked at the nameless stone marker, and for a long time I said nothing. "She was your real mother," I said at last. The child blinked. "Then what's the connection between you and my real mother?" This time, the silence was longer. The wind rose. A butterfly fluttered off the gravestone and vanished into the sky. Only then did I speak. "She was a guest," I said, "one with whom I made a trade." A pause. "And also," I added softly, "a friend."